What was the Premier's view of the casino and of his role? How did he see his role in facilitating this project?
Well, the casino was one area which was not very often discussed in the office. We had very little insight into it. We knew very little about what was going on. Apparently there were no bureaucrats that sat on the casino subcommittee of Cabinet. Everyone sort of talked about it in obscure, hushed sort of tones, if you like. It wasn't something that was openly bandied around. I left in June '94, and that was some 9 months after the licence had been awarded. And I can remember having one conversation with the Premier after Crown had asked for the hotel to be tripled to 1,000 rooms, and the Casino Authority had come back and said no due to various planning and traffic problems. I remember the Premier came round and said, "Oh, Lloyd's gone too far this time. They've knocked him back on his extra rooms." And I sort of said, "Oh, fine." And the Casino Authority's obviously made a decision, and that's that. So I was quite, and that was sort of one of the few conversations that I had with the Premier about the casino. And then 3 weeks later, I think it was on June 22, 1994, the Casino Authority came out and announced that after much consideration they had decided to approve Crown's plan to go to 1,000 rooms and various other amendments to the design. And the announcement was made by the Casino Authority, and I was mystified and somewhat concerned that the Premier's number one advisor and sort of gaming advisor was saying it was a done deal 3 weeks before this. And one other thing that used to niggle with me about this was that Lloyd Williams would regularly ring Alistair and give him horse racing tips. And I mean, Lloyd's a very charming man. I mean, I as a journalist speak to Lloyd a fair bit, and you know, okay, you ring up people and you speak to them and you chat, but he's very good at cultivating people, Lloyd. And certainly he'd known Alistair for a few years, and he was ringing Alistair and giving him horse racing tips and those sorts of things.
And what did you make of this comment, "It's a done deal"?
Well, again, the public perception as to who was doing the decision making and the reality was clearly quite different. Clearly the government, in Alistair being involved as the Premier's number one advisor, had been involved in some decision or some arrangement that had approved it, and but there was the public perception that it was the Casino Authority that was doing it, and it was announced sort of some 3 weeks later. Could
it not be that simply the Casino Control Authority had given the government advance notice of its decision?
Possibly, but the way Alistair was speaking, he was sort of saying it's a done deal, it's been fixed, it's happening, it's going to happen. And Alistair used to also make the comment that he was convinced that the casino would be an outstanding success, and he'd spoken to Lloyd about it, and he'd seen the plans, and he was utterly convinced. I was saying, "Oh, aren't they spending too much, and there's problems with construction," and there were various rumours going around, and Alistair was saying that he was totally convinced that it would be a huge success, which it has been.
So you took it that decisions were being made not by the Casino Control Authority but by the Premier's office?
Yeah, or by the Casino Cabinet Subcommittee, of which the Premier was the chairman, and which apparently no bureaucrats sat in on, and certainly as staffers in there, I never had any idea what was going on with it. It was quite mysterious in a sense. There was one other issue that I was quite stunned about to hear later on, and that was that Alistair, during his time with the Premier, had bought an apartment from Hudson Conway at, I think it was some $57,000 less than the advertised price. Now, in the context of what Alistair was saying about the casino sort of decision-making process for the casino expansion, and in the context of Lloyd also ringing him up and giving him horse racing tips and these sorts of things, I was quite sort of shocked to hear that during the same period he'd been given a discount on an apartment, a sort of a luxury high-rise apartment in St Kilda Road. Now, I asked Lloyd about this subsequently, and he said that yes, Alistair rang him directly personally and asked him about getting an apartment. And I think Lloyd put him onto one of his executives, I think it's Richard Alston or something, who works at Crown, and he did the deal. But, I mean, if you put all of those things together, it was quite a disturbing pattern of behaviour, that you had the Premier's chief gambling advisor and principal confidant getting a discounted apartment from Hudson Conway. You had Lloyd ringing Alistair on a regular basis, just, with idle chats and staying in contact and keeping him informed and giving him horse racing tips and these sort of things. And you had Alistair disclosing sort of three, might have been 4 weeks before this so-called independent body had made a decision on the casino expansion, that it was a done deal, it was fixed, it was over, and all those sorts of things. So those things, if you put them all together, were a bit of a worrying pattern of behaviour. And the one other thing that happened just before I left, which I was stunned to see the result of, was just before we left, the government, I think, wrote to Tattersalls. It was about sort of April, May of '94. The government wrote to Tattersalls and said, we're floating Tabcorp off, we're going to raise, effectively, sell off the gaming licence that Tabcorp's got, which they got for free. Now, the Labor government, in its ignorance, also gave Tattersalls a free gaming licence, which in hindsight was worth arguably $1.5 billion. It was probably the greatest gift ever given to a private sector organisation by an Australian government. Here, have a monopoly on 50% of the gaming machines in Victoria for nothing. Now, the government wrote to Tattersalls saying, right, we want to retrospectively charge you a licence fee. And Tattersalls were outraged. How can you change the rules? How can you do this? So what happens 3 months after this letter goes off to Tattersalls? Alistair Drysdale gets hired by Tattersalls on a package which staff members inside there told me was worth $460,000 a year. And I just found that extraordinary, that you can go from being the Premier's chief gaming advisor and chief overall advisor to straight to a body which is about to embark on a long and involved negotiation process over a $1 billion licence fee, potentially. Now, as it turns out, the fee they extracted was only worth about $400 million in today's dollars. And even after paying this fee each year, because they're paying for it over 20-odd years, Tattersalls is still making more than $100 million a year in profit from their gaming machine licence. If you put all of that together, it really is a disturbing pattern of behaviour and series of events.